Morning everyone, I just want to talk about something called psychological conditioning, and to start off what I'll do is I'll read off the definition just so you can understand it a little bit better straight from the start. So psychological conditioning is a learning process in which the likelihood of a specific behaviour increases or decreases in response to reinforcement or punishment that occurs when the behaviour is exhibited so that the subject comes to associate the behaviour with the pleasure from the reinforcement or the displeasure from the punishment. Now, there was a famous experiment conducted many years ago by a psychologist called Ivan Pavlov with a dog. He noticed that dogs salivated when being presented by food, and even when the dog could hear the food being put in the bowl, but could not see it, which showed him that there was a response from a particular stimuli, i.e. the food. He was curious as to why this happened, so started an experiment and started to introduce the whistle just before the food was presented. And the dog, after time, started to salivate when the whistle went. Pavlov then removed the food from the equation after a while and only used the whistle. And the dog, through psychological conditions, still salivated without the food. So this shows us that our brains and therefore our bodies can be programmed to react to certain stimuli over a period of time. The reason I bring this up is basically to show you that you need to get up and do that presentation. You need to go to that competition, and you need to conduct that best man speech that you've been putting off for so long. If you do not, you're conditioning yourself to associate pain to those particular things, and you'll never overcome them. Now, by simply saying, fuck it, what's the worst that can happen, and doing these things that you think you're bad at, or think you cannot do, and then going and doing it, and smashing it out of the park, you are programming yourself to associate pleasure to those things and not pain. And you will become better at them, ultimately. Now, something, as many as you will know, something that is very close to me is competing in strength sports. And I know people who lack the confidence in going out to actually compete. Although they're more than capable of winning them. It's not that they're weak. Far from it, they're very strong. They just associate pain to competing, and this is worsened by not competing. Through getting up and saying, fuck it, I'm going to go compete anyway and do my best. You're not only gaining invaluable experience, but you're also conditioning yourself to compete much, much more. And it's something I now do in everyday life. It's used. I used to swerve meetings, interviews, speeches, public appearances, competitions, nights out with friends. And that sent me into a downward spiral of fear, basically, by telling my brain to basically fuck off and wind its neck in. And then doing all of these things anyway, and then feeling great afterwards for actually doing them. My brain started to associate these things with pleasure, and I became much, much better at them. You know, I don't fear them anymore, or I don't associate displeasure with them. So what I'm trying to say is go out there and just say fuck it and do it anyway, regardless of what your stupid head is telling you. Now this obviously has its limitations. If your head tells you to not jump in front of a car, for example, it's common sense to not jump in front of a fucking car. Because you won't be conditioning your brain to tell you not to do it again. Because more than likely you won't be able to do it again anyway, because you'll be dead. Saying that, however, is a very good example. If you jump in front of the car, you don't die, you just break a leg. Your brain will associate that action to pain, and will try to prevent you from doing it again by sending your brain signals to make you fear cars. Maybe like cars altogether. It works both ways. Why do we enjoy sex? Because our brains associate pleasure with an action, and therefore program your brain to want it even more. On the flip side of that, you could have a rape victim, for example, who would associate pain to the thought of having sex ever again, and rightly so. Horrible experience. We do this with our children, and I believe it's one of the biggest reasons why children today are so badly misbehaved. As parents, it is our job to condition our children to act in a way that is good for everybody, not just for us, but for them, but for everybody in general. If they do something bad, they are punished, although this does not necessarily mean physically. Children then associate that action to pain or displeasure, and after time they do not do it anymore. If left alone, like the majority it seems, then they will go on in life assuming everything they have done as a child is okay to do. And this is the parents' fault, not the child. It's the parents' fault for not conducting their very basic function of actually parenting their child. So does your kid run havoc through shopping centres all the time? Take a look at home life, and does he or she do exactly the same? And what is your response to their behaviour as a parent? These are the questions you should be asking yourself, and then check out psychological conditioning and the ways it can help turn your kid from a misbehaved, whiny, gobby little brat and into a lovely, well-behaved child. So psychological conditioning, it works very, very well. And you should take it into consideration for a variety of reasons, as discussed above. If you've got any further questions, let me know. I'm more than happy to help with anything. Cheers.